Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we're going to be discussing what I think very well may be the jewel of the German battlecruiser battleships line split, which is the Tier VIII Zieten. So the Zieten, you probably recognize it by just looking at it from the dev blog. This is the battlecruiser that looks like someone ripped the Graf Spee superstructure off of a Graf Spee kit and put it on some random other battlecruiser model kit and said, yeah, that looks great, and then sent it on its way. Yeah, this ship, despite looking incredibly weird, is actually very, very, very good. Now, I've been playing all of these German battlecruisers over the past week in the early access event, and they're all quite good. But the Zieten has just been standing out a little bit above the rest for me for one or two reasons, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, the Zieten, let's go over his stats real quick. Armor-wise, pretty much the same as Prince Ruprecht, except her icebreaker bow isn't as big. That Ruprecht, that icebreaker bow covers up like almost, I wouldn't say quite half of the bow just yet, but I'd say about a third. On the Zieten, it's roughly maybe a fourth of the bow, and then once you get up to the Schlieffen, it's like half of the bow. Other than that, as far as the thickness of the armor, it's pretty similar. Bow's 27mm, upper belt's 250, lower belt's 350, and they almost wrap completely around the stern, but they don't. And then the stern's 27mm, the stern and bow deck armor's 27, and then the main deck is 32mm. Now, the guns are where things get interesting. For some reason, I thought that they were 15-inch, but turns out they are 16-inch guns. Oh, her hit points. She has 62,900 hit points, which is about right for a Tier 8 battleship. Anyway, like I was saying, the guns are 16-inch, not 15-inch. Which really surprised me because I thought that they still had 15-inch at this tier, but they don't. They've gone up to 16. And what really surprised me there was because in-game, when I was playing her for the first time, she had a 22-second reload. I'm like, oh man, these must be 15-inch guns with a 22-second reload at Tier 8. But no, they're 16-inch. So you have 6 16-inch guns with a 22-second base reload time at Tier 8. So you can imagine all the hilarity that ensues with 16-inch guns with a 22-second reload at Tier 8. Now, 2 years ago, if this ship had come out, that would be a huge point for it because of, Tier 8. There wasn't a whole lot of 16-inch at Tier 8 back in the day, but nowadays it's not completely uncommon. But just that they gave this ship 16-inch guns with a 22-second reload was pretty surprising, because they're not that inaccurate. If you've been watching the footage in the background, they're actually pretty darn good for a Tier 8 battleship. Normally at Tier 8 battleships, except for like the Japanese and the Americans, they're still fairly shotgunny, but this is the point to where most of the lines start to get a little bit more accurate, but definitely not to this point at least, which is what surprised me after I kept playing the ship, and it wasn't just me having a run of good luck for a game or two, but they were being pretty consistent. Now, are they always consistent? No. You still get that random salvo every now and then, but they're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. Now, of course, too, she's bristling with secondaries, as the German battlecruisers are. You get 60 of the 105mm secondaries with a full build. You can get these down to a 2.9 seconds reload time, 5% chance of starting a fire, and they have a range of 11.5 kilometers. Then you get 12 of the 150s and the casemate guns. You get 4 single mount 150s, and then you get 4 of the dual mount 150s as well. And those, of course, can pin all the threshold that you need to pin at Tier 8. The 150s can only pin up to 26 millimeters of armor. So you can build them to IFHE if you want to. I don't. I go with the fire build, and that works out well for me. And then, of course, she gets torpedoes as well. They're the same torpedoes that the Ruprecht gets, except she has 2 less sets of them. She only gets 1 set per side and not 2. 12-kilometer range. Same thing, everything else. 16,533 maximum damage, 50 knot top speed, and all that jazz. Now, in terms of her maneuverability, she is quite nippy for Tier 8, coming in at 32.6 knots. She is one of the faster battleships at Tier 8, and she has a 15.3 second rudder shift time. Concealment's also another big plus for her. With the build that I have on her right now, which is just the concealment module, we have her down to 13.3 kilometers. So if you do put the commander skill on her, that's going to drop her detection range down to around 12 kilometers. Now, unlike the Ruprecht, that's not her secondary range, so you won't have that funny little gimmick where you detect it and the ship is immediately in your secondary range. But 11.5 kilometers secondaries at Tier 8 is quite far. The Bismarck and the Tirpitz and the other German battleships only get out to 11.3, so she has a bit of an edge there in terms of range. So, how does this ship play in battle? So, just like the Ruprecht, she is, of course, a close-in engager. She's very, very, very good at it, too. She's very quick, very nimble, nice and stealthy, too, with that 13-kilometer concealment range. And the main thing to me is just the guns. The guns are, main guns, that is, not the secondary guns. The main guns are pretty darn consistent for a German battleship. Now, am I saying that you're going to be railing your target left, right, and center? No. But for what they are, and especially for the reload time on them, they're really, really, really flippin' nice. And despite having the weird rune gun layout with the 1 turret in the front and the 2 in the back, she's pretty darn capable. Especially because the number 3 turret can 360 degrees, which means that you're not losing 2/3 of your firepower every time you have to shift your ship around a little bit. You have that number 3 gun coming up on target pretty much as soon as you need it to. And plus the firing angles for that number 3 gun, and heck, even the number 2 gun, are actually pretty decent. Especially by German standards, we all know how those go. Now, you do have Hydroacoustic Search 2 on there, of course, because it's German, and the fast cooldown damage con, and only 4 heals with Superintendent instead of 5 like you would on a main line. So she's still quite squishy, of course, as the German battlecruisers are, but she's still capable of taking a beating and delivering the punishment. In a one-on-one engagement, this ship is going to absolutely win. I would be willing to say, unless it's another like German ship with torpedoes, or unless you were rushing a cruiser for some reason with torpedoes, it's going to win probably 80% of the time, and I'm planning on using her in brawls here in a moment once I get done making this video because of that. But yeah, it's just a really fun ship to play. The look of the ship has really grown on me, despite having, this gigantic Graf Spee superstructure Star Destroyer looking thing. It's really fun, and it has been doing incredibly well for me. She holds up very well, even when getting double up tier, and that's what really surprised me, because this one is, of course, the Tier 8, which means it gets Tier 8 matchmaking, which means you get double up tier to Tier 10. A lot, especially with the way matchmaking is at the moment. So when you get up tiered, well, at least when I got up tiered in this ship, I still managed to do along the lines of about 115,000 damage. I had an absolute worst case scenario match where I got Ocean double up tiered to Tier 8, okay? That is the absolute worst case scenario for a brawling battleship. There's nowhere to hide, you're in the open. Normally these ships have massive detection ranges because you have to build into the secondaries, and you normally just barely do anything and just die within like 10 minutes, or you make it to the end, you go out in a blaze of glory and only manage to net like 40,000 damage a lot of the times. But with this ship, because she's quick, nimble, and has good concealment, I was able to disengage when I needed to, and I could almost dictate the terms of my engagement, almost, because again, Tier 10 with Tier 10 DDs, very sneaky DDs, and I was still able to do in the neighborhood of, I believe I finished that match with 106,000 damage done, which isn't a ton of damage by Tier 8 standards, but for that situation, it was quite good. I was able to do that because the guns, even though you only have an 18-kilometer range, they can at least hit stuff at that 18-kilometer maximum range. Well, a lot of German battleships, their maximum range, sure, the shells can go that far, but you're not going to hit anything at that range. But with the Zieten, I was able to. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the fast reload time too, because if you throw enough stuff at the wall, some of it will stick. So yeah, sure, that contributes to it a whole lot. Now, when I wasn't double up tier to Tier 10 games like that, when I was top tier, I was doing like 130, 140,000 damage, getting at least 2 or 3 kills each. I never got Kraken and the Zieten so far, though. Like the Ruprecht have like freaking 4 Krakens in it already, which is freaking crazy for a new Techline ship that's just been release, but the Zieten's performing very well for me. It's just a lot of fun to play. It's a really goofy looking ship too, and again, the looks really grown on me. But she's a great ship. I'd recommend when you grind up the German Battlecruiser line, if you're planning on doing that when it comes out, I would recommend, of course, holding on to this one after you're done with your grind. Oh, and of course, too, if you have Lucians, absolutely put him on these ships or start training him for these ships. He boosts these ships so far out even more once he pops that secondary loader skill. Once you get 100 secondary hits, you get that 15% boost to your reload time. And at that point, the secondaries are going to be absolutely tearing everything up. Even though they're only 105s, and people make a lot of that. But at Tier 8, being able to pin 26 millimeters of armor, when you're top tier, that's certainly more than enough to get by, especially with the cruisers at that tier. Yeah, now, of course, you're going to have the battleships. That's a different story, and I build into fires on my secondaries to deal with those battleships. But, I mean, sure, you can run IFHE secondaries on these ships, and that's perfectly fine. But especially at Tier 8, it's kind of really killing the performance of the ship because, yeah, you have 16-inch guns, and they're great at Tier 8, but Tier 10, you're going to have to be throwing some HE around too to those bowing battleships, and now you're cutting that 38% fire chance down to frickin', I'm not a math teacher, but like 19% now instead of 38. So that's really going to hurt you a lot there. And again, it's Tier 8. 26 millimeters, that's certainly enough to do damage there. At least for me it is, and it's been doing quite well when it's top tier. But yeah, it's a really fun ship. I'd recommend you guys pick her up when the tech line goes out live for everyone to grind, and keep her in your port afterwards. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you managed to unlock Zieten already, what do you think about her? Are you having great success in her so far, or not so much? So again, let me know what you guys think down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subs, just past 29,100 the other day, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.